It's time now for the award-winning #1 local talk show in Northeast Pennsylvania, The Sam Lesante Show. Now here's your host, Sam Lesante.
So, folks, I've been asking for years about numbers from the lottery and the gaming, and are we really helping our seniors? Well, I'm very happy today to tell you that I have the main man himself, okay, the Secretary of Revenue. This is the guy who gets all the cash. This is the guy that knows what's going on, and we all know him here in northeastern Pennsylvania. For those viewers in central Pennsylvania, Dan Meuser. He is the Secretary of Revenue, and it's my pleasure to have him on the show today. I know he made a special effort to come up so we could get some real facts. Dan, first of all, congratulations on your position.
Thank you very much, Sam. Glad to be working with the governor.
It must be an interesting position, you know, coming from private enterprise going into the state. Were you surprised? Is it interesting? Is it a challenge?
Oh, it's a great challenge. Being the Secretary of Department of Revenue, first of all, you are classified as the CEO, if you will, of the agency. We have over 2,000 employees and some important functions, of course. We're very much focused on many of the same principles I was in my former life in the private sector, and that's improvement of customer service, constituent services, certainly creating efficiencies and eliminating redundancies, as well as and lowering costs, as well as enhancing in an equitable manner the appropriate collection of taxes throughout the Commonwealth.
You know, the interesting thing is, coming from the private enterprise, your business, okay, and your business, what was, I mean, you still have the business, but what was it?
Well, I'm no longer with Pride Mobility Products.
Yeah.
I was with Pride for over 20 years,
Yeah.
and helped build the company and grow the company over that time frame.
When you're doing that, you know that it takes a team effort to do that, and it takes a person who knows how to give the direct directions, because nothing can be achieved in in any company unless you have good assets and they're your people. So the thing that excites me about what Tom Corbett is doing, okay, and this has nothing to do with a Republican or Democrat thing, okay, I want to clear that up, is that Governor Corbett is able to look at people and get the appropriate people in the right positions, okay? You going into revenue, you have that business background. You know what it took to have a successful company. Now you're dealing with bottom line stuff, okay? Yeah. And that's what, you know, for years, and I don't doubt anybody, I'm not calling anyone a liar, but it always fascinated me that when years back, Dan, we were told, particularly with the seniors, and I have a great senior audience, that we were going to get a lot of tax relief, and when the lottery was going to give so much, and the gaming was going to give so much, and you know, we're seeing, you know, things happening, and I thought maybe what you giving me bottom line figures here, you know, where we're at. Let me start with the budget, okay? Let's talk about this budget and why this budget is so critical right now in the state of Pennsylvania.
Well, the governor has come in facing over $4 billion deficit. He's also made a pledge. One of the reasons he was elected is because he says, while I'm cutting the budget, we are also going to grow the state towards higher levels of prosperity. And you do that through keeping taxes where they are, if not lowering them, minimizing regulations, working on tort reform, advancing education, restructuring those dollars, things of that nature, creating investment within the state of Pennsylvania. So this budget is so crucial because it is important that we right now put a down payment on our economic future. We must balance this budget. The governor is facing the largest challenge any governor has ever faced with a $4 billion deficit. Much of those dollars were stimulus dollars that are no longer there, and he's doing it without lowering taxes. He's got a very good plan, and he's relying upon people to help him execute it.
Well, I know it's tough going for him right now, because I mean there's a lot of areas that, you know, there's a run on a lot of advertising right now. Call your legislators, don't let this happen, don't let that happen, and I guess you know, some people are going to have a short pain, but a long-term gain here. Yeah. Okay, I think this is the way the governor's looking at it.
It really is. We think the results will speak for themselves, and not in 100 days, not in 200 days, but over 1,000 days. He's restructuring, he's bringing fiscal soundness and responsibility, at the same time in parallel allowing growth opportunities to take place. It's essential that we keep a budget level. He set a budget for next year based upon our projections from the Department of Revenue at $27.3 billion. That is the highest level of revenues, by the way, after refunds and with a couple of other non-tax revenues put in there. that the Commonwealth has ever had, ever. Over the last 8 years, we outspent ourselves in Pennsylvania, 38% increase in spending versus 25% increase in revenues. We simply are spending far more than we have. And our state does not have a revenue problem, although we at Revenue plan on enhancing that as well without raising taxes, but we've got a spending problem. The governor recognizes that, and he's very adamant about keeping this $27.3 billion number and making a down payment on our future.
And why is that so important, okay, for the health of the Commonwealth?
Well, because we can't deficit spend any longer. And we are an economy that, although there are some signs of progress and growth, there's as many signs, it's a very confusing picture of real downside risk. Housing continues to be a problem. Gas and oil prices create volatility. Unemployment is certainly up and down, fortunately improving a little bit more so in PA than nationally. Our GDP numbers over the last 2 quarters, the first quarter and the second quarter, are 2 points less than were predicted as early as February in Q1 and March in Q2. We do not have a strong outlook. We have a confused outlook, and therefore the governor is going to make sure we err on the side of responsible.
Looking forward, okay, in the short term, if you had this problem in private enterprise, you know, what you do is either you cut down, okay, get more areas that you can bring in more revenue, all right, and you have to assess it so your business can be healthy, or you go bankrupt, okay? Right. In the state of Pennsylvania, I think we look at the same similar situation. Okay.
We don't want to raise prices, meaning higher taxes. You raise prices if a business is not doing well. We could look at it that way. They don't try to fix their financial health by raising prices. They reduce their spending. They increase efficiencies. They make themselves better. They tighten their proverbial belt. And that's what needs to be done here in the Commonwealth.
Folks, if you just tuned in, I'm talking to our Secretary of Revenue, Dan Meuser. Folks, he's from northeastern Pennsylvania. Dan has a great background, folks. He's a very honorable person, and he's a person that'll be able to bring some wholesome results in the Revenue Department. I say that based on his past. We come back, lottery money. Okay, we're talking about where is it going, how much are we getting, gaming money, and then what does the future look like for the state of Pennsylvania? Stay with us. Welcome back to the Sam Lesante Show, folks. Remember, the official water of Samson Productions and SSP TV, Tomican Mountain Spring Water. Folks, for those of you who are just hearing about Tomican Spring Water, I ask you to go to our website, ssptv.com, and you'll learn a lot more about this. If they don't have this water, it's the same water that Starbucks uses, ask for it, Tomican Mountain Spring Water. My guest today, Secretary of Revenue, Dan Meuser. And, of course, the state of Pennsylvania, we're hoping that it's going to grow and flourish. Dan, for years, I've been asking people, you know, from the state of Pennsylvania. Now I'm going to get it from you. And I know when you're going to tell me it's going to be truthful, okay? Yeah. Lottery revenue. Tell me about it.
Lottery revenue?
Yeah.
Well, speaking of the lottery, outside of gaming, lottery is its own entity. The lottery brings in, on a retail basis, $3 billion, slightly over that, this year. Of that, there's a 2.5% operational overhead, which amounts to about $85 million. And there is, outside of prizes, there is a $916 million this year will go directly from the lottery fund to programs that benefit exclusively for the purpose of benefiting older Pennsylvanians. And the money goes in the form of PaceNet, many retirement facilities that you see, or senior centers, much of the types of transportation that you might see for seniors, prescription drug programs, long-term living, as well as the very well-known property tax and rent rebate program, where almost $280 million this year will go towards to seniors for property tax relief.
So it is going directly for property tax relief and seniors.
It is. The lottery department, like Department of Revenue, is, I classify as good. We want to take it to great. Are there areas for improvement? Absolutely. Is the governor expecting us to improve both the Department of Revenue and lottery, which was within revenue? Yes. But in general, the funding and the expenditures are very well allocated, and they're quite impressive.
When someone's buying the lottery ticket, other than Mega Bucks or whatever they call that, I think that's distributed throughout a lot of
Mega
other
Millions, right?
Other states. But the Pennsylvania lottery, okay, our second most famous groundhog, all right, that promotion. If they're taking in $3 billion, how much of that did you say, what percentage goes into the, after you take your expenses and your administrative expenses, advertising, et cetera, what goes back into, what percentage goes back?
30 cents of every dollar by law. Now, recently, we got some relief with that because instant tickets is becoming more popular than the terminal games, and that's lowering that margin slightly. And in order for us to allow for a lower margin, we want to focus on profitability. But basically, 30 cents of every dollar. This coming year, it'll be 30 cents of every dollar.
Goes back into
towards funds, as I was describing, strictly and solely that benefit older Americans.
All right, so
older Pennsylvanians.
It says here, okay, property tax and rent rebates combined with general property tax relief from slots, gaming, provide significant support to older Pennsylvanians and residents with disabilities. Right. That's coming from you. Explain that to me.
Well, this year, through the gaming taxes from slot gaming taxes, there will be approximately $780 million total. Those dollars will then be distributed this summer as a discount, if you will, on people's property tax bills to the tune of approximately $200 to $250 per homeowner throughout the state of Pennsylvania. Now, of course, many of those are seniors. Those it's in the general homeowners. Now, if you add in the dollars that go to low-income seniors, that come from the property tax and rent rebate program, there are many seniors that are getting the entirety of their property taxes paid for or reimbursed through the joint programs, because that can be as high as $1,000. It could actually be as high as $1,200.
And how does someone who is an elder Pennsylvania, a senior, what do they do to find out how they can apply for these?
Well, we have a phone number for people to call for property tax and rent rebate, and that is at 1-888-222-9190.
Okay, repeat
1-888-222-9190.
Okay, Andy, if you could put that on the screen, 1-888-222-9190. And folks, write that number down, 1-888-222-9190.
They can also visit our website,
which is
revenue@state.pa.us,
okay.
And the information's there as well. And just quickly, who does qualify?
Yes.
Are seniors over the age of 65 who are homeowners who make less than $35,000 a year, seniors who rent who make less than $15,000 a year. Widowers or widows, age 50 or older, in the same category of income, and people 18 years or older with disabilities. Now, as well, it's important to note that 50% of the Social Security income is not counted against those income levels.
That's fantastic. So there's a great opportunity here for our seniors to get some relief here.
Absolutely, there really is.
Okay. Now, before I get to gaming, I want to talk about that when we come back after the break. Let's talk about businesses in the state of Pennsylvania. If I'm encouraged, and I'm just using me as an example, Samson Productions, if I'm encouraged, or if your business is encouraged to make investments, to hire more people, then that gives me an incentive. But if you make my life difficult, okay, bad enough I have to keep employees, I have to pay, benefits, I have to do this, and et cetera, then why should I want to grow, or why should I want to continue to conduct my business? You know what I'm trying to say?
I do.
So I think in order for me, you would want businesses to be healthy so they can maintain the employees they have and then purchase more
Right.
equipment or whatever the case may be so we can help the state of Pennsylvania.
Right. That is probably what's on the mind of the governor as much as anything else. To make Pennsylvania, to create the Pennsylvania advantage, to create Pennsylvania along with the state of independence, the state of opportunity. And it can be done. There's a reasonable formula for it that's been followed in other states that we are emulating ourselves after.
You know, sometimes people look at people who are in business and they're successful. And, you know, there's the jealousy, envy. Why should we make him richer or her richer? Or why should that business, they're multi-rich until they close, until they don't expand anymore? Then people lose their jobs. As far as I'm concerned, I could care less whether a person who owns a business becomes a zillionaire. I could care less whether if they have 25 yachts and 40, but they're providing hundreds of jobs for people and for families.
They're creating, they're not transferring. It's not a zero-sum game.
Exactly.
Increasing for yourself, you're not taking from somebody else. That's all part of an expansion economy.
Marcella Shale, okay, when Lieutenant Governor sat where you sat about a month ago, he talked about the millions of dollars that has already been generated from Marcella Shale. What that comes into your revenue?
It sure does.
And it's a big part.
Well, this past year was somewhat unexpected. We received in already this year $238 million in corporate corporate tax remittance.
So why would we want to make their lives miserable?
Well, we shouldn't. At the same time, the governor's strongly in favor, of course, of keeping very high quality standards and the costs that should be associated with that business in assuring that our levels of industry standards are simply the highest in the nation. But outside of that, yes, they are very, the industry as a whole are paying a high level of taxes, and we're truly just getting started.
That's right.
Much of it, we're not seeing a great increase in withholding taxes, or excuse me, in profitability due to the fact that there's not a tremendous amount of gas yet being produced.
That's exactly right.
It's coming from pipeline companies and other infrastructure development, we've determined.
That's encouraging for the state of Pennsylvania. Folks, I'm talking to Dan Meuser, who is the Secretary of Revenue. And folks, bottom line is this guy, okay? If you don't know about Dan Meuser, check him up. Check him out. He's been a solid businessman, and he is a person that will give you facts. He's honest, and that's what we need in the state of Pennsylvania. I hope he continues to be that way. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Sam Lesante Show, folks. My guest, the Secretary of Revenue, he has all the cash, and he's the one that makes sure that it's coming in, it's properly used. Dan Meuser from northeastern Pennsylvania. For our viewers in central Pennsylvania, I want to welcome you to the Sam Lesante Show. You can watch this show, folks, 24/7 on ssptv.com, as well as all the other shows we produce. We produce 21 local shows in northeastern Pennsylvania. Our news is #1 in the greater Hazleton area, and we're very happy to say that. Dan Meuser, gaming revenue, okay? Now, you're in charge of the lottery. How are we accountable for the gaming revenue coming in?
Well, we administer the tax laws surrounding the gaming industry. We have a special bureau that takes in the gaming tax remittances, and we administer the gaming tax laws.
Now, accountability for the gaming money that's coming in. Okay, who audits the money coming in? Do we know that if we're really getting $1 billion from the casinos, that that it's going to be properly distributed?
Well, certainly. First of all, we do our job, and we have the right people in the right places. It's a sensitive part of tax collection, so I meet regularly with those in our gaming bureaus. Certainly outside of us, the budget office pays a tremendous amount of attention to it, as does the Auditor General.
Charles Zogby, who is the budget secretary, another gentleman who has a fabulous reputation and, in my estimation, a very honest person.
Good man, very honest person.
And he is he's looking at that pretty closely, right?
Sure, as we all are. Now, again, our role is not to create the expenditures or be involved in the expenditures. Of course, ours is to take in the revenues to ensure that they're accurate and then direct them in the appropriate places by law. Now, I will say that the gaming industry is pretty well taxed. In fact, it's got the highest levels of tax of any state in the country. As a matter of fact, I'm not sure if most people realize that we bring in more tax revenues from our 10 now, or 9 actually functioning casinos, than are brought in the state of Nevada from all the casinos in Las Vegas. So from a gaming standpoint, not property tax and sales tax.
And I have to tell you this, the casinos we have in the state of Pennsylvania are fantastic casinos. I mean, they're beautiful casinos, and I applaud those companies who came into Pennsylvania, and I wish them profit, I wish them well, because they are providing a lot of jobs, and it's a lot of fun for seniors. I go to Mount Airy Casino up here, Sands, and Mohegan, and we have a lot of fun with them there. But they're great casinos. But here's where Zogby said in April 15 that $386 million, went for property tax relief, including $35 million in property tax relief reserve fund. So we see that they are going into the appropriate places, which makes me very happy.
Yeah, and people should feel confident that that is occurring. Whether or not it's occurring at the levels that were projected in 05 and 06 and all, I really can't speak to. But the dollars and taxes that we receive are definitely allocated right. I mean, this year, as I believe I stated earlier, about $780 million will come just from slot gaming taxes, and will go to 2.7 million homeowners for some level of property tax relief.
And folks, put the number up on the screen. Call this number. See how much you can get and what you're qualified. It's your money. You should be getting it. It's 888-222-9190, okay? Or the revenue.state PAUS, okay? There is the website coming from Dan Meuser himself. Dan, the budget, again, is so important. I think there'll be a little sacrifices that we have to make, but in the long term, I think we're going to see some great things happening, particularly in education.
Well, we will. The governor talks about education as often as he talks about tax relief and regulatory reform and overall job creation. Again, I think the results will speak for themselves over time. The governor does believe, Governor Corbett does believe that some of the funding that goes to institutions should go to students. Shouldn't necessarily go to funding institutions, should go to funding students. And that's how he wants to create some reallocations in the future. This past year, with some of the cuts to education, are very unfortunate. It's not something the governor likes, whether it's in basic education funding or it's in higher education or higher education systems. But the fact is, education has increased in spending over the last 8 years by over 45%. Last year, well over $1 billion of funding, 1.2 billion, I believe, was from stimulus dollars. And those stimulus dollars just simply aren't there anymore. And from a basic education funding standpoint, allocations from the general fund, the governor has increased the levels of spending by over $500 million for basic education funding. We don't have the stimulus dollars anymore to use. So the general fund is an increase from last year and is at 08-09 levels of spending for basic education funding. Those are the facts.
Getting back to realistic fact, you get the economy, you get people working, you get business growing, you get more taxes in, you get more shale doing what they have to do. This is what stimulates the state of Pennsylvania. Cut those corporate taxes so people want to come into the state of Pennsylvania. And I think that's a direction it's a healthy direction.
It is. What the governor cares more about, I'll hesitate in saying this, is not necessarily corporate profits. What he cares about is people having jobs, people increasing their personal income, kids having opportunities here after they graduate from our good schools. All right, overall, he's about building trust. He did it as Attorney General, and we believe he is going to do it as governor.
Dan, his record spoke for itself. I interviewed him before he became Attorney General. Asked him a number of questions, what he wanted to achieve. Last year, I asked him the same questions, and he said, "I achieved those." as a governor. He said, this we want to achieve. And then knowing of you and appointing people like you into very important positions makes me feel good. You got a great reputation. I wish you the best, and thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you, sir.
It's my pleasure. Okay, Dan Meuser, folks. He's the Secretary of Revenue. Number again, call 888-222-9190. If you apply, you can apply for money. It's yours. Get it. See you next time.